When Maureen Jaime drove the final branch into place on her makeshift cabin, she didn't know the Alpha King had been watching her for 3 days straight. She didn't know Alfred Gway stood at the ridge above with 20 of his strongest warriors, studying every movement she made with an intensity that bordered on obsession. She didn't know that her survival, her refusal to break, her fierce determination to build something from nothing, had just changed the fate of every pack in the Northern Territories. All she knew was that she was alone, exiled, and running out of time before winter killed her. The branch slipped from her bleeding hands and clattered against the others. Yumi cursed under her breath, wrapping her torn shirt tighter around her palms. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a high-ranking warrior in the Silver Pine Pack. 3 weeks ago, she'd had a home, a purpose, a future. Then came the accusation. The trial that wasn't really a trial. The Alpha who'd been like a father to her, standing silent while the council voted for her exile. Treason, they'd called it. Conspiracy with rogues. All because she'd questioned orders to massacre a group of lone wolves who'd done nothing but cross-pack territory while fleeing hunters. All because she dared to suggest mercy. So here she was, deep in the unclaimed forests between territories, building shelter from broken branches and sheer stubborn will. No pack, no protection, just her wolf, her instincts, and the knowledge that giving up meant death. She didn't notice the massive figure descending the ridge until his shadow fell across her work. Jaime spun, her wolf surging forward instinctively, claws extending, and then she froze. Alfred Gway stood less than 10 feet away, and he was everything the legend said. Massive shoulders wrapped in leather armor that had seen countless battles. Dark hair pulled back to reveal a face carved from stone and sharp angles. Eyes that glowed faint gold even in human form. The Alpha King of the Northern Territories, the wolf who'd united 5 packs under his rule through a combination of brutal strength and unexpected wisdom. And he was looking at her like she was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. "You've been building for 3 days," Alfred said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in her chest. "Haven't stopped, except to hunt and sleep. Most exiles give up after the first night. They either run south or let the forest take them." Jaime's heart hammered, but she forced her chin up. "Most exiles probably had somewhere to run to. And you don't? Would you be here building a cabin from broken branches if there was somewhere else to go?" A smile ghosted across his lips, there and gone so fast she almost missed it. "No, suppose not." He circled her structure slowly, examining it with the critical eye of someone who'd built his own shelters in hostile territory. "Your corners are weak, won't hold against the first serious storm. And you've left gaps in the roof that'll let rain straight through." Fury sparked hot in Jaime's chest. "Then maybe instead of critiquing, you could move along and let her finish." "Could do that," Alfred agreed, still circling. "Or could help. Make sure this shelter actually keeps you alive through winter instead of collapsing and crushing you in your sleep." She blinked. "Why would the Alpha King help an exile build a cabin?" He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell pine and leather and something wild that made her wolf sit up and take notice. "Because exiles don't usually build. They run, they hide, they give up. But you're not running, you're not hiding, you're not giving up. That's either stupidity or strength, and been watching you long enough to know which one it is." "You've been watching me?" "For 3 days," he confirmed without a hint of shame. "Watched you set snares with hands that were shaking from hunger. Watched you defend your campsite from a juvenile bear twice your size. Watched you cry exactly once for about 30 seconds, then get up and keep building. So yes, Maureen Jaime of the former Silver Pine Pack, been watching, and now going to help." Before she could protest, he turned and whistled sharply. 20 wolves emerged from the tree line, all of them massive, all of them radiating power. His pack, his warriors. "We're building today," Alfred announced, his alpha command ringing through the clearing. "Proper shelter, strong enough to survive anything. Move." And they did. These legendary warriors, wolves who'd conquered territories and won wars, descended on her pathetic little cabin like it was the most important construction project in the world, because their alpha had ordered it, because Alfred Gway had decided this exiled she-wolf was worth protecting. Jaime stood frozen, watching them work, unable to process what was happening. Alfred moved beside her again, his shoulder almost brushing hers. "You look confused. Why are you doing this?" His golden eyes locked onto hers, and the intensity in them stole her breath. "Because the wolf who stands up for what's right, even when it costs her everything, is exactly the kind of wolf the world needs more of. Because your old alpha was a coward for exiling you, and because when I saw you building something from nothing, refusing to break, something in my wolf recognized something in yours." The air between them crackled with sudden tension. "That's not an answer," Jaime whispered. "No," Alfred agreed, his voice dropping lower. "It's the beginning of one. If you're already hooked on this story, if you need to know what happens when an Alpha King decides an exile is worth everything, then hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications. Because Jaime and Alfred's story is just starting, and what comes next is going to test everything they think they know about loyalty, destiny, and the kind of love that rewrites the rules. Don't miss a single moment. By sunset, the cabin was unrecognizable. What had been a fragile structure of broken branches was now a solid shelter with reinforced walls, a weather-tight roof, and even a stone fire pit. Alfred's wolves worked with terrifying efficiency, and several of them kept glancing at Jaime with barely concealed curiosity. She tried to help, but Alfred had physically steered her to a log and commanded her to sit. "You've been doing this alone for days. Let us handle it." Now they were finishing the last details, while Alfred built a fire, his movements precise and practiced. The warriors filtered back into the forest one by one until only 3 remained, standing guard at a respectful distance. "They're staying?" Jaime asked. "Until convinced you're safe," Alfred said, not looking up from the fire. "Make enemies by standing up to your alpha. Those kinds of enemies don't forget. They'll come looking eventually. Can't stay here forever protecting an exile." "No," he agreed, finally meeting her eyes across the growing flames, "but can stay long enough to make sure you survive. And after that..." He trailed off, something complicated crossing his face. "After that, we'll see." They sat in silence while the fire grew, and Jaime felt the exhaustion of 3 weeks crashing down on her all at once. The constant vigilance, the fear, the bone-deep loneliness of being packless in a world where pack was everything. "Why did you question the order?" Alfred asked suddenly. "Most wolves follow their alpha without question, even when the order is wrong. Why didn't you?" Jaime stared into the flames. "Because those rogues had pups with them. 3 pups, barely old enough to shift. And my alpha wanted us to kill them all because they'd crossed our territory. Said it would send a message, but all I could see was terror in those pups' eyes and just couldn't. So you spoke up." "So I spoke up, argued, refused the order, and the council decided that made a traitor." She laughed bitterly. "Funny how standing up for innocent lives makes you the enemy." Alfred was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was rough, with barely controlled anger. "Your alpha is a fool. The kind of fool who destroys good wolves because they threaten his fragile authority. Had to deal with his type before. They never last. He's lasted 30 years. His time is ending," Alfred said with absolute certainty. Can feel it. The old ways are dying, Jaime. Alphas who rule through fear and blind obedience are being replaced by ones who understand that true strength comes from earning loyalty, not demanding it. Your exile might feel like the end, but it's actually the beginning of something better. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe this wasn't just survival, that there was actual purpose in her suffering. But it was hard when everything had been ripped away. You don't know that, she whispered. Alfred stood and moved around the fire, crouching in front of her, until they were eye level. Yes, because I saw it happen. Been that wolf who questioned orders and paid the price. The difference is, had the strength to take over when the old alpha fell. You didn't have that option, but that doesn't mean your story ends in exile. His hand reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch surprisingly gentle for such a powerful wolf. What are you saying? Jaime asked, her heart racing. Saying my pack could use a warrior with your integrity. Saying I've been looking for wolves who understand that strength isn't just about dominance. Saying that maybe I watched you for 3 days because my wolf has been howling at me that we found something important, and not just talking about your survival skills. The mate bond. He was talking about the mate bond, that rare and precious connection that linked souls across distance and time. Jaime felt it too, had been trying to ignore the way her wolf perked up every time Alfred was near, the way his scent made her feel safe for the first time in weeks. That's impossible, she breathed. You're the Alpha King, can't just... Can, Alfred interrupted firmly. I can choose who I want by my side. Can decide that an exiled she-wolf with more honour in her little finger than most alphas have in their entire body is exactly who they've been waiting for. Can rewrite every rule if it means not losing this. His hand cupped her face now, thumb tracing her cheekbone. But only if you want it too. Won't force this, Jaime. Won't command it. This is your choice. Jaime's breath caught. 3 weeks ago, she'd lost everything. And now the Alpha King was offering her not just survival, but belonging. Purpose. Something that felt dangerously like destiny. Don't know how to be a queen, she whispered. Alfred's smile was devastating. Don't need a queen. I need a partner. I need someone who'll challenge me when wrong, stand beside me when right, and build something beautiful from broken pieces. Think you're exactly the wolf for that. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home and starting an adventure all at once. The mate bond flared to life between them, golden and warm and absolutely right. Her wolf sang with recognition, and somewhere in the distance, his remaining warriors howled their approval. But the peace didn't last. A familiar scent hit Jaime's nose, and she pulled back from Alfred instantly, her body going rigid. No. Alfred was on his feet immediately, his warriors materializing from the shadows. What is it? Silverpine, Jaime said, her voice tight. They've found me. 10 wolves emerged from the tree line, led by Beta Marcus, her former packmate and the one who testified against her at the trial. His expression was cold and satisfied. Maureen Jaime, Marcus announced formally, your exile included orders not to seek aid from other packs. You've violated those terms. The sentence is death. Alfred, stepped in front of her, his presence suddenly terrifying. She didn't seek aid, offered it. There's a difference. Marcus's eyes widened slightly when he recognized Alfred, but he held his ground. With respect, Alpha King, this is Silverpine business. The exile is ours to deal with. No, Alfred said simply. She's under my protection now, which makes her my business. You want her, you go through me. The clearing went deathly silent. You would start a war over an exile? Marcus asked incredulously. Alfred's smile was all teeth. Would end one. Your alpha knows better than to challenge me over this. But if you want to try, we can settle it right now. Subscribe right now if your heart is pounding, because what happens next is going to change everything. Stay with us. Marcus clearly hadn't expected this. He'd come to execute a powerless exile, not face down the Alpha King and his elite warriors. Alpha Silverpine will hear about this? Good, Alfred replied. Tell him personally questioned his judgment and found it severely lacking. Tell him that the wolf he exiled for having a conscience is worth more than his entire corrupt council, and tell him that if he has a problem with that, he knows where to find me. Marcus and his wolves retreated, but the threat in his eyes promised this wasn't over. When they were gone, Jaime's legs gave out. Alfred caught her before she hit the ground, holding her steady while she processed how close she'd come to death. They'll come back, she said, with more wolves. This isn't over. No, Alfred agreed, it's not. But next time they come, you won't be alone. You'll have a pack, my pack, if you'll accept it. Jaime looked up at him. This powerful alpha who'd descended from his ridge to help her build shelter, who'd stood between her and death without hesitation, who'd offered her everything when she'd had nothing. Why? She asked one more time. Why me? Alfred's expression softened. Because 3 days ago, I watched an exile build a cabin from broken branches and refuse to break. Watched her choose survival over surrender. Watched her prove that sometimes the strongest wolves are the ones who lose everything and keep building anyway. And my wolf recognized its mate. Your mate, Jaime repeated, the word both terrifying and wonderful. If you'll have me, Alfred said quietly, know it's fast, know it's complicated, know you've been through hell and probably need time, but also know that what we have doesn't come along often, and not fool enough to let it slip away. Jaime thought about her old life, her old pack, everything she'd lost. And then she thought about this fierce alpha who'd chosen her, this new beginning, this chance to build something beautiful from the broken pieces of her past. Yes, she whispered. Yes to all of it. Alfred's kiss this time was claiming and gentle all at once, and when his pack howled from the forest, it sounded like welcome, like home, like the beginning of something that would reshape the territories. Because sometimes the most powerful stories start with an exile building a cabin from broken branches, and sometimes the Alpha King watches and descends and changes everything. If this story moved you, if you felt every moment of Jaime's journey from exile to queen, then subscribe to Lunar Mate Story right now, because their story is just beginning. The battles with Silverpine, the challenges of building a new kind of pack, the romance that will test them both. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you're not going to want to miss what comes next. We'll see you in the next story.